Hello, everyone. Today with us, Sofia Vargas, analyst in the Organized Crime and Grand Corruption Cell at C4ADS. Here to discuss the upcoming report on Venezuelan shipping activity before and after U.S. sanctions. So with no further ado, Sofia, please take it away.
Thanks, Dror. We studied in this report a longitudinal study of 2 years analyzing tanker vessel traffic in Venezuelan waters before and after the U.S. sanctioned Petróleos de Venezuela, or PDVSA, the state-owned oil company in Venezuela. So on January 28th, 2019, under an executive order 13850 in the United States, the U.S. Department of Treasury sanctioned PDVSA, was able to target shipping activity in Venezuelan waters for transporting oil in and out of the country. And so what we did in this report was look at AIS data and corporate network activity from the year before PDVSA's designation, as well as the year after, and then compare the 2 years of data to understand greater trends of activity after sanctions. So one trend we noticed through our analysis was a dramatic decrease in overall activity in Venezuelan waters by tanker vessels. From 1 year to the next, we saw a 46% decrease in port call activity in Venezuelan waters. And we also noticed routes or voyages that the vessels took after leaving Venezuelan waters shift as well. So through the sanction, Venezuela lost its #1 oil customer, the United States. And what we noticed in analyzing AIS data of the specific routes that vessels took after leaving Venezuela was that the United States no longer made up the #1 destination in voyages. We saw instead China, India, and Cuba kind of push up in the ranking and become the #1, 2, and 3 destinations for vessels after leaving Venezuelan waters. But yet, under and within the context of overall tanker activity decreasing. So in no way did they replace voyages that were going to the United States before sanctions, but they did become kind of the new top destinations for vessels after the sanctions. And using AIS data, historical AIS data, we were able to look at newer companies and vessels to Venezuelan waters and understand kind of the profile and trends of activity that shows vessels and companies a little more willing to risk sanctions in order to continue conducting or operating in the Venezuelan oil sector.
Sounds super interesting. And you mentioned AIS as part of your investigation, and now with all the new OFAC advisory out, how do you go about investigating shipping behavior based on AIS with so much data noise out there? How does this differ from previous times that you conducted these type of investigations?
Yeah, so data noise was definitely an issue for us in narrowing the scope of our analysis. And the way we framed it and framed our methodology in the report was by scoping our analysis as realistically as possible. So that included setting parameters on the types of vessels that we were looking at. In this case, we focused our attention and analysis on tanker vessel activity exclusively, because tanker vessels are crucial to the import and export of oil in Venezuela and to other countries. And we also scoped the time of our analysis to be able to compare activity before and after sanctions. So we collected AIS data and port call activity data to establish with certainty that these vessels interacted in a Venezuelan port and actually arrived to a Venezuelan port to either load or unload cargo. And finally, establishing the exclusive economic zone of Venezuela as the region that we were analyzing. And so through that, we were able to collect data on a total of over 900 vessels that operated in Venezuelan waters over those 2 years. And in that way, kind of narrow our list of vessels of interest that we wanted to analyze for trends.
Now, during your investigation, there was a big event that took place, which was the OFAC advisory being published in May. How would you assume behavioral will change in the Venezuelan arena? And how will it affect the commercial supply chain in terms of new actors forced to conduct due diligence?
Yeah, so in that OFAC advisory, the red flags of activity that were highlighted include ship-to-ship transfers, AIS manipulation, and in other words, like dark activity or dark voyages. And we definitely already see some of that occurring in the Venezuela case. Even though the Venezuela case was not specifically highlighted in the maritime advisory, it definitely speaks to some of what we're seeing and what we highlight in this report. We've seen ship-to-ship transfers starting to take place in Malaysian waters as direct voyages to China from Venezuela go down. We're seeing shipping companies cutting contracts with PDVSA or no longer wanting to be involved in the Venezuelan oil trade given sanctions. And perhaps this can also or could lead to more of a consolidation of activity in specific companies or with specific countries being involved. Cuba is an interesting example where we see vessels that are voyaging from Venezuela to Cuba to transport oil under their bilateral trade agreement. We're seeing vessels related to PDVSA or formerly owned and managed by PDVSA taking over that activity instead of foreign companies that would be more averse to the risk of sanctions.
That's great. Thank you. And I completely agree. The shipping activity in Venezuela is definitely changing after having read the report. It's just great research. And I think that more is yet to come since the OFAC advisory was just published. And as you said, there are new actors coming into play. I'd like to thank you, Sophia, for this great cooperation and the great report that you created. And for everyone watching this, to see the entire report, just follow the link on this post. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Troy.